Good day, everyone. My name is David Schumacher, and I'm the QA Director for Alturas Analytics located in Moscow, Idaho. I have two primary objectives with this presentation. Alturas has hosted a number of remote audits, so I will share some tips on what has worked for us and perhaps you may also find useful. Secondly, I'll describe the remote FDA investigation of my company initiated in April of this year. Alturas Analytics was one of the first companies in the US to be investigated remotely by the agency, so I will share the process by which it all came down and successfully completed in hopes it may help you prepare your firm. The worldwide outbreak of COVID-19 and its arrival on our shores earlier this year had a dramatic impact on nearly everyone in the pharmaceutical industry, including the ability to host customer audits. Our last on-site inspection occurred in mid-February. All subsequent audits have been virtual, requiring companies such as Alturas to develop remote audit practices, permitting auditors to complete their due diligence checks. At this point, remote audits are not standardized, so be sure to summarize the process up front. For instance, are you using a secure site to share files, SharePoint, a quality management system application, email? Be sure the auditor knows what is expected and can prepare accordingly. Test your Wi-Fi throughout your facility. Understand areas that may have a weak signal and consider adding additional Wi-Fi boosters. Despite all the steps a company must take in order to improve the remote audit experience, auditors themselves, particularly those working from home, must also step up their game and improve their tools, especially their internet bandwidth. Avoid audio streaming while doing big data downloads, for instance, movies, online gaming, from other users in the household or facility. Of course, this is further complicated for many parents who are now homeschooling due to the pandemic, so internet resources may be challenged all over. Most of the online meeting application, whether it be WebEx, Teams, Zoom, or others, have the same basic functionality, but very different paths. Know how they operate. Technology is rapidly changing in all these applications as well. Not all cell phone video cameras are equal. Mine is an inexpensive Android phone, but we have found more recent iPhones or Androids provide much better image quality. Don't be cheap like me. Know the best way to view with your camera. If you're in a wide open lab, then turn it to landscape to show the size of your area in a good panoramic shot. If in a hallway or narrow work area, then use the portrait mode. It would probably work best for your viewer. If you're providing video tour, then share with the viewers a floor plan prior to the tour so they can follow along during the presentation. The guide should be sure to provide some dialogue as to which room or areas they are viewing consistent with the floor plan. Know how to perform a close-up of a bottle or other type of label. It sounds easy, but you must have a steady hand and move very slowly and allow time for the camera to focus. Consider using a handheld gimbal device to help stabilize the camera. This is a gimbal device we have tried at Alturas. It's a DJI Osmo Mobile 3. In addition to just stabilizing the video camera, you'll flip from landscape to portrait with the touch of a button. You can start, stop, record, zoom in, out, scan left, right, up, down, all through the use of hand controls. I believe it retails for around $100, but is well worth the investment if you plan to perform a number of cell phone video tours. How is the video tour being conducted? Just one person holding the cell phone and communicating with the viewers? Or will there be a videographer and then a host or others describing their areas? Will this be an interactive tour? If so, then you will need the ability to speak and listen during the video tour. Good audio quality applies to both the videographer and the auditors. Use a good quality speaker system, Bluetooth device, or possibly a headset. There are times when we as the hosts often cannot fully understand the question or comment being posed by a viewer. Auditors often want to keep their hands free to take notes, which is fine, but be sure you don't sound like you're in an echo chamber. Understand which areas may have background noise issues. For instance, a freezer room or an area with a number of turbo pumps. Understand noise levels and lighting in various rooms or areas. Warn the viewers if you're entering a noisy area, and ask the viewer to have patience and hold their questions until you exit. If there are multiple viewers, then designate one individual to ask questions. Encourage the others online to use the chat function with the designated speaker. Be sure individuals, for example, the IT director, trainers, TFM, etc., who may not necessarily be the primary focus of the audit, but may need to answer questions or access data. Be sure these ancillary individuals are available and have the immediate link to the online meeting so they can quickly join when called upon. Be aware of what is behind you, whether it is a bulletin board or a whiteboard with confidential information, or the company coffee pot, creating distractions when employees come in for that necessary refill. Confidential information may also appear on desktops or lab benches, so be sure to avoid showing these sensitive areas. Remote audits are likely to take a bit more time, perhaps 10 to 20% slower than those performed in person, so adjust your expectations accordingly. Most auditors want to view a recent validation for a computerized system. If your validation documents are typically paper, then consider scanning them as soon as they are complete so they can be quickly retrieved if requested by the auditor. Many facilities ban cell phones and other video equipment within the facility. Find a way to make an exception, as remote audits are not going away. That concludes the first portion of my presentation on remote customer audits. I'd like now to speak specifically to a special customer audit, the FDA. As a disclaimer, the process which I am about to describe may no longer necessarily be the same used by the FDA today. In fact, there's an important change which I'll get to in a few minutes. Most FDA investigations are unannounced, and the only warning one receives is a friendly knock on the door. Well, on March 18th, the FDA announced that they would be scaling back domestic investigations and directed its employees to begin teleworking. However, the FDA did not lose our phone number. On April 7th, Alturas received a call from an individual claiming to be an FDA investigator asking if we could participate in a remote inspection. We acknowledged yes, since we had been promoting remote customer audits on our web page due to COVID-19. The FDA investigator informed us that they would contact us again. A couple of days later, on April 9th, the lab director received a call from the FDA investigator announcing a remote inspection would begin on April 14th, the following Tuesday. The investigator asked for email addresses for the key individuals who would be involved with the opening statements via a WebEx account managed by the agency. We were initially informed that there would be 2 investigators taking part in the WebEx meeting, but we had 4 online at the opening session on April 14th. The lead investigator was from the Seattle District Office, with other investigators from California, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. Alturas also had 4 senior members participate in the opening session. The lead investigator stated that the opening session was being recorded and asked for an acknowledgement from Alturas, which we provided. Each investigator showed their FDA identification badge on camera. Showing FDA badges was a bit sketchy due to a variety of issues, but we had previously confirmed the identity of the FDA lead, so we were satisfied that these individuals were indeed who they claimed they were. Each FDA investigation must be accompanied by a Form 482 identifying the purpose of the investigation. The lead investigator read a portion of the 482 and was characterized as a surveillance inspection. A PDF copy of the 482 was emailed to the company president, and receipt was acknowledged both verbally and by confirmatory email. A secure box.com account was established by the FDA and shared with Alturas for providing a repository for uploading requested documents. Typically, a new subfolder was created for each day's activities to help keep things organized. There were introductions and then a PowerPoint overview of the company, at which time we offered a live video tour of our facility led by the lab director. Everything proceeded smoothly as everyone got comfortable working with the remote process. We uploaded documents and provided online electronic reviews of SIACs, LCMSMS data, Watson LIMS, and electronic lab notebook data through screen sharing over the next several days. Throughout the inspection, we only had one WebEx session at any given time. There were no concurrent or multiple sessions. The lead investigator usually called me as the on-site lead early in the morning and made requests for documents to review that day or an upcoming day. And then this was followed later in the morning by a WebEx meeting with various individuals. FDA asked for a daily listing of who participated in the inspection for each day, which was uploaded at the end of the day. Typically for on-site audits, there is a daily closeout meeting, but with 4 investigators being on the East and West Coast, timing did not really permit this. East Coast inspectors were wrapping up for the day by the time the West Coast investigators really got going. Finally, on April 23rd, the 8th day of the inspection, the FDA announced a closeout for the next morning at 0900 hours. Based on the audit up until that point, we thought it had all gone pretty well and would be pretty straightforward. Well, the next morning, I had an early morning phone call from the FDA lead investigator canceling the closeout meeting. We were devastated. The lead investigator stated that they were asked to look at some additional studies. Well, a little background info. Alturas was informed by a customer a few months prior to all this that they were submitting a drug application in a foreign country. Since the FDA was already quote unquote on site, the investigators were asked to look at these other studies, we assume by headquarters. This now became a directed audit, but was still characterized as a surveillance inspection in the end. The inspection continued for another 8 days, pretty much in the same manner. Eventually, another closeout was scheduled for May 6th. Again, the FDA stated the WebEx was being recorded and included the Alturas senior team and the 4 FDA investigators. The closeout meeting unfolded pretty much the same as if on site, with review of observations and acknowledgement by Alturas. A 483 was emailed to the president, and ultimately a hard copy was received a few days later. Alturas provided a written response to the FDA within 15 days. Even with a good response, I'm used to the FDA taking several months, if not a couple of years, to acknowledge satisfaction and receive the EIR report. Well, the EIR and closeout letter were received June 25th. To me, this is record time. Thank you. During the FDA inspection, we uploaded 534 documents over the 16-day inspection. We also established a spreadsheet early on to track which documents had been uploaded. This became valuable later in the audit in the ability to identify which documents had already been shared by searching the spreadsheet. So I strongly recommend that you develop some sort of electronic tracking tool for any regulatory visit, as you'll be uploading a large number of documents. Earlier, I alluded to a change in the FDA process. Well, the FDA no longer calls these inspections, but rather remote regulatory assessments. Henceforth, there are no 482s issued, nor displaying of credentials. There is no 483 issued at the end of these if there were any observations, nor will there be any formal report. Any verbal observation noted during the remote assessment may become an issue at the next on-site inspections, so you best take heed and address them. In summary, remote customer audits have become the norm and successfully executed for a number of facilities, including Alturas Analytics. Even in a post-COVID-19 world, remote inspections are likely to continue in some form as companies and auditors have quickly adapted and learned how to accept these. The FDA quickly adapted to the remote inspection process and was successfully hosted as if on site, but are no longer called inspections, but rather remote regulatory assessments. Don't wait for the FDA or a customer to show up at your virtual doorstep before conducting a remote audit. Practice taking a video tour of in your facility. Practice on the application so you and your staff know how to navigate whatever application you're using. Practice on the internal organization of documents to have them ready. Be ready for that virtual knock on the door from a customer or regulator. Thank you much for your attention. I'll be happy to answer any questions through the format established for this presentation, or you're welcome to email me at the address indicated on the slide. Please remain well and stay healthy.